Hi, I am Dawn. I am a BCBA, and I wanted to first introduce myself before I start a series of videos aimed towards helping RBTs or ABA therapists be better therapists. Sometimes the BCBAs may not explain the programs or the reasons or how to do things very well, or maybe you're just confused because you need to hear it a different way. So I want to first start out by saying that I am not negative. I'm a realist. In the past, I've had some opportunities to be in clinics and seen the way things have been working, and instead of seeing a lot of progress, I saw more things that I wanted to change. And being a center and a new BCBA there, I couldn't do that. So I really want to help you and parents and anyone in this ABA world working with children with autism. My job as a BCBA is to help each individual child be the best he or she can be, not comparing the child to anybody else, not comparing his therapy or her therapy to others, but to do what works for him or her. So the first thing is always they need to have some form of communication. That leads me into what I wanted to discuss first. It's one of my biggest pet peeves, actually. You hear nonverbal. My child is nonverbal all the time. But is your child really nonverbal, or is your child nonvocal? So nonverbal versus nonvocal. What I want to explain to you is what is verbal. Instead of going on what is not verbal, let's talk about what is verbal. A newborn baby is verbal. How is a newborn baby verbal, you ask? He cries when he's hungry. Maybe he wants to show you another need. He wants to be picked up. He's cold. He needs his diaper changed. He's hungry. But he cries. That is a verbal behavior. When a kid holds up their arms to be picked up, that's a verbal behavior. They're showing you what they want. Pointing. Screaming in refusal, not screaming no because they're not vocal, they don't say no, but they don't want or flopping to the floor. That is being verbal. They are showing you what they don't want to do. Pulling you to a toy they can't reach, pointing at a toy. All those are verbal behaviors. Vocal, it means talking. And it means, so non-vocal means they don't talk. They don't have either any words, they have maybe very little or few minimal words, but they have no functional speech. So on another session, I'm going to talk about why sign language is the best route, the differences between sign language and other systems. And we're going to talk about some successes and the successes I've had with sign language, and the things that you can do with it, because it is a verbal form of speech. Even Skinner acknowledges sign language. But what I wanted to do today was just talk to you about some things, couple things, not a lot, that I noticed in the centers that I was in, and maybe just a few tips that people aren't going to tell you. So the first one, I noticed that the therapist, maybe they're encouraged, I don't know, but they talk constantly to the child. The child is trying to watch a video. What do you see? What color is it? Who is that? Leave them alone. If they're in reinforcement time, don't bother them unless they want to have you as a reinforcer. You talking to them is actually reinforcing because they're doing something that shows you that, then leave them alone. When you're working with them, don't talk constantly. Give them a second to think. Think about how you feel. If you're trying to do a task, say writing a sentence, and somebody is just talking to you, your sentence probably isn't going to be as good as it would be if they would leave you alone. So just think about the constant talking and then the loud voice, which brings me to don't use a fake happy voice. At the centers that I saw, everybody talks in this very unrealistic, fake, happy voice. Like a kindergarten teacher almost, but even happier. And even when the kid's having a problem behavior, such as, you say come here and they don't come here, they're still saying come here. They're begging them. Well, that's not real life. I mean, we don't go around talking like that. And the thing is that's a reinforcing voice, so you're actually reinforcing the behavior that they're doing. But second, they start to tune you out. Same with using their name every time you go to do a trial. If you say, Johnny, what is it? Well, when he starts hearing Johnny, he's going to start walking away because he knows it's about to be work. So let's not use Johnny or his name every single time. You might say, hey, or come here, look. But then you don't need to be afraid to be stern. And that has become a new wave in ABA that I've noticed. People are afraid to be stern. They are too nice. It's iPad's not available, or not saying no. Now, I don't teach no when I'm teaching manding, but that is a whole nother session. You can be stern. You can be stern. You can say, try again. You can say, sit down. A very controversial thing that I've had a lot of controversy with other BCBAs and just people in general, pairing. A lot of people explain pairing when you first meet the client as being everything good, but it's not right, because if you're that child's best friend, you never ask them to do anything, even sit down or come here or stand up or let's go, you're not gaining any instructional control. You are not asking that child to do anything. So after your pairing is over, you have become, or you're going to have, a huge problem, because they're not going to do anything you ask, and then no longer are you the best friend. So we want to integrate a little bit of instructional control in there. It doesn't mean that you're doing programs. It doesn't mean that you're being mean. It can be, hey, sit down, or come here, let's go, wash your hands. But they, if they don't do it, then you can prompt them, and whatever prompt is appropriate at the level. But don't be afraid to gain that instructional control. You need to do both. Be creative. You can use anything to teach in ABA. Anything. You can find things all over the house. If your program is, feature function class, you don't have to use the same cards every time. You can get, little toys they have, a car, a little bird, and put them in a line or in a messy array, and say, show me, well, give me the one that flies. You don't have to just do cards every time. And then the biggest thing, well, before that, remember, your clients can learn. Every one of them are capable of learning. If you've heard differently, if you feel that this one is different, you're wrong. They all are capable of learning. They all have intelligence. And the more behavior that you're going to see, it seems like sometimes the more intelligence they have, they know how to get out of work. So the biggest thing that you need to do and to understand as a therapist is to understand the 4 functions of behavior. You need to remember this, though. Behavior can be controlled by more than one function at a time. An example of that would be a child starts out at 2 years old doing a stem. I don't know, jumping up and down and screaming. And jumping. And at first, parents think it's cute, and then about a week into it, they're like, I can't stand this anymore. I'm stuck here all day with him because, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I can't hear the screaming anymore. So they start saying, stop. Or, Johnny, no, sit down. Well, something twists and turns in the mind, and, they think, Mom's not really giving me a lot of attention, but when I jump, she gives me attention. When I scream, she gives me attention. So then it has become controlled by attention and automatic. And sometimes you have to be able to differentiate which one. Sometimes it's both. Attention's a lot easier to work with than automatic. So that's another story. But I wanted to real quick go over the functions of behavior, and then we will close this up, and I'm going to keep doing videos. I really want to help everybody become the best therapist that they can be. So I'm just going to do a brief overview, and it'd be good if you would kind of try to think of some examples. But the 4 functions of behavior, you can remember them by the acronym SEAT, S-E-A-T. They are sensory, which is also known as automatic, escape, attention, and tangible, like an item, something you can touch. So we are going to go over these. Let's start with sensory or automatic. It's done because it feels good. We all stem. An example is I'm always popping my neck. I'm always popping my fingers, my knees, all the time. I can't, and if somebody tried to give me an M&M, I'm not going to stop doing it because the M&M isn't reinforcing at that time. Popping my hands are. So we do have to understand there is a controversy about stopping stems. I will also touch on that later. Stems do need to be stopped if they're interfering with learning, if they're impeding learning, but we will discuss that later. Some things that you may know already: hand flapping, scripting to where they repeat a line out of a movie, like I'm Buzz Lightyear, I'm Buzz Lightyear, I'm Buzz Lightyear. We don't want to give attention to that and say, oh, where is Buzz Lightyear? Because then you're also adding attention to that. There's a very good intervention, which we will discuss later. Shuffling toys, like they get their toys and just shuffle them. Humming, they might hum all day, they like the feeling. A big one is eye stems, and I've noticed a lot of BCBAs don't even notice this. They might turn their eyes and look, or do this a lot, or get like an item and run it beside their eye. That needs to be stopped. It could be damaging to their eyes, but it's also distracting. They're not listening to us. They're only wanting to stem. So we can direct their hands down to something appropriate. If it's a car, direct it to, look, we push the car. So that's sensory. Like I said, jumping, screaming, all those can be sensory. The next one is escape. Escape, kids, adults, we all do it. We want to get away from someone or something. It can be you. You may not be reinforcing at that moment. They may need a break from you. But they need to find a way to appropriately ask. They can't just flop on the floor or run away. If they don't have language, we can teach them language. Escape can look different in different individuals, hence why autism is a spectrum. It's not all the same. One example is you say jump and your child flops to the floor. Another one would be, you say touch red and he looks away and does other things. So it has to be something that a dead man can't do. So looking away could be a dead man could kind of look away. So you have to add another: turning head, focusing on object, moving hands. They can cry. They can tell you no. They can hit the table. They can whine. So the biggest thing with escape is you don't want your client to be allowed to escape, because once they escape, then they're going to realize, hey, I got out of this. I'm going to either do this again or I'm going to do something different each time. You want to find out why they keep trying to escape. And if it's too hard, we're going to teach them to ask for help, or we're going to give them an easier task. But instead of the constant, I need a break, I need a break, I need a break, because, in real life, we can't just tell our boss we need a break every 5 seconds. We have to finish a task. So the biggest thing I see is that a lot of people don't realize that sometimes the child's reinforcement can simply be finishing the task and being done with it. I'm done. I don't have to do it anymore, but I finished it. Not I get a break and I come back and I don't have to do it anymore. Always remember what your first task was and finish it, your first initial task. And then we go to attention. Attention is a very important one. It's a big one because a lot of problem behaviors have a function of attention. We just do things for another's attention. One reason that we see a lot of typical autistic, kids, doing things for attention is because we have become a society when the child is being good or quiet and not bothering us, we don't tell them anything. We don't say, I love the way you're being so quiet. Thank you for sitting quietly. Instead, we leave them alone. And then when they do something bad, we scream at them. And I've had parents tell me, well, I'm not giving them attention, I'm screaming. Yes, you are. You're giving them attention. Anything that you do directed towards them, looking at them, rolling your eyes, sighing, getting annoyed, turning away, it's attention. And some kids, including me when I was young, I loved to irritate my mom. So that was reinforcing to me when she would get upset. And it's sad to think that I did that, but I did. So if you think about it, you can even just go, and the child sees you, and they're getting the attention they need. So always be very careful with your subtle movements. Behaviors can start out, like we talked about, as only an automatic sensory need, and they can turn into an attention-seeking behavior. So that's that. The last one is tangible. Tangible is the client wants something. Tangible, the definition is something you can touch. So candy, toy, book, iPad, or phone. Those are big ones. We have to teach our children to play with other things, and that can mean time without the iPad. It's going to have to, because then the iPad becomes so reinforcing, but then they're almost satiated, but it's almost like an addiction. They can't stop. So we want them to have different outlets. a side note, when teaching manding, and we will discuss a manding session, I will show you exactly how we do it in another session. During mand sessions, we don't teach or say no. If it's a mand session, if they ask, they get. So the last thing I want to go over on how to be a good therapist, something that's really important to me. There's 3 voices. The first voice is your SD voice. You can call it a teacher voice, a mom voice. My voice tends to be more SD voice than it definitely isn't one of those high pitched, oh my God, all the time like that. But kids react very well to that. So your SD voice is your most used voice. It's when you give a demand. You don't say, can you sit down? You say, sit down. Because if you say, can you sit down? Then they can say, no. Will you sit down? They can still say no. You're asking them. You need to be telling them. You say it in it's not too stern, but it's just I mean business. Come here, sit down. What is it? Touch yellow. Touch yellow. Then you can, you alternate between these. I can go between these from this one to this one to this one to this one, in 5 seconds. Your next voice is a reinforcing voice. It's a higher pitched voice. Happy. It's reserved for great things. Don't use this voice if they can do something and they've done it for a year. I've seen therapists, oh my God, great sitting. And I'm thinking, they've been able to sit down for 2 years. Let's not do that. Let's save this super reinforcing voice for things that we really want to see. You can always say, I love the way you're sitting. Thank you for sitting, but you don't need to be over dramatic about it. Because then they start to tune you out and ignore you, and you're reinforcing your voice means nothing. The last one is what I call the problem behavior voice. It's more stern. Your voice kind of drops, and you're all business. Again, I can go from stern, all business, to happy as can be in about 2 seconds. You had said sit down. Child doesn't sit down. Sit down. Sit down until they sit. Then you can say thank you for sitting. But you're not going to say, oh my God, I love the way you sat, because he didn't really sit. It took you 5 minutes to get him to sit. Then we practice. We do another trial. Sit down. He sits. Oh, I love how you sat. Those are the 3 voices. So I just want to make sure you understand that if you don't reserve your reinforcing voice, it becomes your normal voice and it gets tuned out. You are not being mean. In the real world, people don't walk around talking in a high pitch and are super happy all the time. And it's good for kids to learn to differentiate between your voices. So again, my name is Dawn. I've been a BCBA for a little over 5 years. I worked as a therapist and in a school for several years before that. I have experience with children from 18 months to adults over 30. And so next time I'm going to discuss other things. I'm going to show you how to do a manding session. I'm going to talk about sign language. I'm going to also bring some books that I think will help you to learn and show you the books. And if you have anything that you need help with and want me to do a session on, just write it in the comments. Thank you.